Upon first plugging it in, you'll see it go through its initialization sequence. The climate control button's LEDs will flash, and you'll see the LCD screen become illuminated. After the 2-minute sequence is up, it'll show the main menu on the LCD screen. Now you'll want to cycle the ignition so it can register all the data commands from the vehicle. What we want to do first is verify that all screens and functions are present throughout the 5.2-inch display. The screens you should have available to you are the logo and splash screen, the menu and options screen, the climate control screen, the camera control screen, the information screen, your vehicle gauges 1 screen, and vehicle gauges 2 screen. Next, to get the kit set up, you want to access the installer settings menu. Press and hold vehicle settings to get into the hidden installer menu. These are the available installation settings menu options. If you have a factory amplifier, it'll show that here. If you don't have a factory amplifier, it won't show that logo at all. The first thing you want to do is access the bezel button programming section. These buttons at the bottom need to be programmed because they vary from vehicle to vehicle. The screen will go through the list of available buttons that you could have. If you don't have that vehicle setting, touch I do not have this button. This vehicle also doesn't have this button. It doesn't have eco off either. It does have eco on, so simply press the eco on button. When you're done going through that menu, verify the options you have selected. This looks good. The next section we want to go through is camera settings. This is where you can program all of the cameras that you have installed in your vehicle. Like mentioned earlier, camera 1 input is locked on reverse. In this vehicle, we've installed left and right blind spot cameras. We'll now select camera 2 to program it for the camera we have plugged in. It'll show the camera you have plugged into that input on the radio screen during programming. Just scroll through the options and select which camera that is. It's the left camera. You can now select the available trigger options to automatically activate that camera. For this camera, we can set it to activate when you double tap the turn signal, only when you manually activate it, upon hitting the turn signal 1 time, or hitting the turn signal and when you're above a certain mile per hour. We only want this blind spot camera to activate when you use the turn signal and you're traveling above 30 miles per hour. Next, hit the back button to further program the cameras. When you select the camera trigger for a blind spot camera, it'll allow you to overwrite another camera input and set it for the same trigger. We want to overwrite camera 3 because we have the right blind spot camera plugged into that input. The other 2 camera inputs, 4 and 5, that we don't have a camera connected to, can be used to program additional cameras. An example of additional cameras you could have, we'll program on camera 4. Since we don't have a camera plugged into that input, it shows a blank screen. But let's say we had a front camera plugged in. We can select front camera and then set the triggers we want to activate it. If we want the camera to activate when you put the vehicle into drive, you can turn that on here. You can set the speed threshold so that the camera shuts off after a certain speed after going into drive. We want it to shut off after you reach 5 miles per hour. We can also activate the front camera depending on what angle your steering wheel is turned to. We only want the front camera to activate if you're turning your steering wheel and you're below 5 miles per hour. We also only want the camera to activate if you're turning your steering wheel past 30 degrees. Now that the front camera activation has been set, you can hit back. When you've set your triggers, it'll give you a preview of what triggers you have set for the cameras you have available. The full list of camera names you can have set are aux, front, left, nanny cam, no camera, right camera, trailer bed, trailer left, and trailer right. Since we don't actually have a front camera plugged in, we'll go ahead and reset this as none. We also have additional camera programming in place to prevent any rolling lines or distorted images when switching between cameras. The default settings for these programmable options are 50 millisecond initial delay and 1 second camera post delay. That means when you switch from one camera to the next, it'll initially delay the image from switching for 50 milliseconds and then delay the post camera switching image for 1 second. These programmable options are here because different aftermarket radios require a different amount of delay when switching from camera to camera. You can minimize this delay, but you may get some rolling lines or distorted images. For this radio, we want to select the minimum delay possible so that switching between cameras can be quick. This customer is okay with having a slight roll of the image when switching between cameras so that they can switch quicker between them. We'll set this to no delay. We'll also set the post delay to no delay. After changing to no delay, here's an example of how the camera switching will happen between left and right blind spot cameras when using the turn signal. Here is what the camera switching looks like when setting the camera delay to no delay. This is the left blind spot camera, and here we can see when switching to the right blind spot camera. There's no delay, but you do get a slight roll of image. This customer is okay with that because they can now switch more quickly. If we go back to the default delays, we'll see what the cameras look like then. Here's the left blind spot camera, and now we'll switch to the right blind spot camera. As you can see, there is a delay, but you get no rolling image or rolling lines. The next section of settings are the factory amplifier settings. That is, if you have a factory amplifier equipped in the vehicle. We can change the gain here and the equalizer settings of the factory amp here. We can also adjust the front to rear fade of the factory amp as well. If you want to use the aftermarket radio to adjust the fader, activate real-time fade. You can also activate and deactivate the surround sound setting of the factory amplifier. If you want to activate the factory surround sound, you can activate that feature here. We'll go into the steering wheel control settings now. All of the defaults are set to mimic what the steering wheel controls did from factory. If you want to change those settings, you can change them here. From factory, the volume up and down settings are on the right side of the steering wheel, and the track up and down settings are on the left side. This customer would like to have the volume up and down control on the left side and the track up and down control on the right side. To change that, we'll simply select short press on volume up and change it to track up. We'll select track down on volume down. You can change the settings if you'd like to by selecting short press and changing to the command you want. Now we're going to exit the installer settings and go to the user settings of the kit. You can access the factory vehicle settings by selecting vehicle settings on the main menu. Here's a list of the vehicle settings that this vehicle is equipped with. We've added the auto start-stop memory feature. When activated, it will memorize and recall the last setting that the auto start-stop feature was set to, even after you shut off and restart the vehicle. This vehicle doesn't have auto start-stop, so it's not shown here. Now we can go into button settings. The buttons we're referring to are these 4 programmable buttons on the kit. You access that here. We can assign these buttons to have individual features activated when you press them. We'll assign button 1. Here are the different options you can set these programmable buttons to. You can set these programmable buttons to features such as cameras, climate control, display on/off, screen shortcuts, screenshots, or leave them unassigned. We're going to set button 1 to a screen shortcut to activate the climate control screen. Now when we press button 1, it'll automatically go to the climate control screen. We're going to set button 2 to control a camera option. We're going to set it to camera off. This will shut off the camera image being displayed when a camera has been automatically activated. This is a blind spot camera being activated, and here's how the button will deactivate it. We're going to set button 3 for a climate control setting. We'll use button 3 to turn on and off max AC. If your climate controls are turned on, you can use this button to turn on max AC and turn off max AC. We're going to set button 4 to turn on and off the 5.2-inch display. When activated, it will toggle the screen's display on and off. The option for button pop-ups is set to enable. That means when you put your finger on a button, it will show a pop-up of what those button options are. Then you can press in on the button, or you can tap the screen to activate it. When you deactivate this feature, the pop-ups will no longer show. Next, we'll go to the display options. Here we can change the highlight color of the screen, the background color of the screen, the brightness of the screen, and also toggle the auto brightness setting. We're going to change the highlight colors to red. Now we want to put the background color as blue. To adjust the screen brightness, we have this slider here. If you want the screen to change its brightness depending on the illumination of the rest of the vehicle, select Auto here. If you want to reset the colors back to default, simply hit Default. Now we'll go into the About section. This shows the product ID and all of the firmware versions. You can go into diagnostics to determine if you're reading the CAN bus of the vehicle properly. It shows what key position you're in, if the parking brake is on or off, where the vehicle illumination is set to, the gear of the transmission, and the speed of the vehicle. Pressing continue will activate the update process. Here's a demo of the climate controls. Here we have auto turned on and off. We can adjust the fan speed from the knob or from the display. We can adjust the temperature of the driver's side or the passenger side if we have dual climate in the vehicle. We can adjust the temperature of the driver's side or the passenger side from the hard buttons or from the display. We can change the vent option. We can toggle max AC. We can also have the driver's side and passenger side sync together. If your vehicle is equipped, you can activate the heated and cooled seats and the heated steering wheel from this menu. You can also toggle the heated steering wheel by selecting this icon. Shown here is the temperature of the vehicle. This is the camera control screen. You can use it to manually activate any camera you have connected. Here we'll activate the rear camera. Deactivate it by tapping again. Now we'll activate the left and right camera. If you have one camera activated and select a different camera, it automatically switches. Here's the information screen. You can see the battery voltage, the transmission gear you're in, and also the tire pressure of the vehicle. It'll also show if the parking brake is on or not. Here we have user customizable performance gauges. You can toggle between different information settings, like speed, RPM, oil pressure, oil temp, coolant temp, trans temp, intake temp, engine load, absolute load, fuel pressure, manifold pressure, barometric pressure, your fuel to air ratio. We'll select RPM in the middle, fuel to air ratio on the left, and speed on the right. Here's your Gauges 2 screen. This will log your best 0 to 60 time, your best 60 to 0 time, and your best quarter mile time. You can reset these logs by hitting clear at the bottom of the column. This is the logo and splash screen. Our default is our RPK RadioPro logo, but by tapping, you can add a custom image if you'd like. Press and hold here to upload a custom image when you have it on a thumb drive plugged into the back of the kit. The first settings you need to select are the bezel buttons. This programs the lower button panel because it differs from vehicle to vehicle. You can go into the camera settings to select your camera triggers and what cameras you have plugged into the kit. To adjust the factory amplifier settings, tap factory amplifier. Here we can change the steering wheel controls, and the advanced menu adjusts your chimes. Here's the user settings. You can access the factory vehicle settings by tapping the gear icon. You can set the programmable buttons to what you like in the button settings. Adjust the color and brightness of the display in display settings, and go into the About settings to update the kit or access kit information. The climate control screen is where you can control all the factory climate controls. You can also control heated and cooled seats. Here's where you can control the cameras that you have plugged into your kit. This is your vehicle information screen. Here are your performance vehicle gauges. And here is the Gauges 2 screen, which shows your performance data.